In this section of the course, we are still in Rankin Park in Martinez. We are still looking for Larry. Now, if you remember from the prior section, we talked about map layers, the base layers, how you could change them, and each of the different base layers gave you a slightly different view into the environment. And we also talked about stacking base layers, where you could take one base layer, add another one on top, such as normal shading, which gives us a three-dimensional effect. We can get a little bit idea better of the slopes that we're dealing with. And we can add, for example, another layer, the satellite view, which can give us a little bit more specific information about where trees are, where buildings are, houses, what the areas actually looks like. Also, what areas are really not as densely treed. These layers, we are using base layers in each of the cases. And in general, we're probably not going to stack many base layers together other than using the three-dimensionality of normal and the satellite view. It's rare that we would be stacking other layers together. Those are the ones we use more than anything else. But what I want to talk about now are overlays. This is the section that we see under the map overlays, weather forecast, real-time data. These do not use base layers. This section uses coloring on top of the base layer to provide more information. So for example, a very common one is we can turn on contours. Okay, now we can start seeing how steep the slopes are without being in the 3D mode. We also have another overlay, which is called the Map Builder overlay. This can be used to show trails. There's some advantages to this and some disadvantages. It creates a map very similar to the Map Builder Topo, but at the same time, having all these red lines all over the screen tends to confuse the issue because our tracks will be often in red lines. We can change this. There's a section we'll talk about later about building the way our maps look. And it will be using a map builder tool, but for right now, this is just very quickly what the map builder overlay does. It changes the shape of roads. It shows trails in red. Similar to contours and similar to the 3D, slope angle shading gives us an idea where the most steep slopes are. These are areas that you might be concerned about for landslides, or at the same time, if you're having to travel across or move down on one of these slopes, you're going to know that this is an area that's steep and you may have some trouble with footing. The colors you can see here underneath this, you can see the colors give us the percentage of slope. A couple places where we have some 46 to 50 degree slopes. The rest of them are a little bit less than that. Land management. This shows the ownership, or at least the jurisdiction of different parcels of land. So you'd have Forest Service, National Park Service, Bureau of Land Management. I do not know what FWS is, local and state, Department of Defense and tribal. So when I turn this on, we get this red area that shows us that it appears that either the county or the city of Martinez owns some of the land down around the marina. Maybe they have jurisdiction over it because of being able to develop a ferry business. The motor vehicle, I'm going to show this later. This is really good for up in the Sierra because what they've done is they've taken the Forest Service maps and they've highlighted Forest Service roads. And it shows which roads tend to be four-wheel drive, which are possible with two-wheel drive. So it's pretty good for mountain areas. For right now, I'm not going to show it. I will show it later. Fire history shows a lot of where there's been fires over the course of the last several years in the state. I guess I can show that one. I'm going to zoom way out for this. Okay, so we saw that in 2002, PG&E had a fire here, this area. 2004, there was a fire along, it says highway, I assume Route 4. 2006, Sky Valley had some fires. So, fire history, fires in the areas. Okay, fire history. Fire activity is just current fires. Sun exposure. Okay, here we've colored the chart to say the yellow is where we'll be in sunshine on May, the month of May, at 8 o'clock in the morning. The yellow shows where the sun will hit the ground. The blue areas are in shadow. Okay, so that's what this is showing us. Those areas that are not receiving any sunshine at a certain time of the morning. Should I change this to 10 a.m. in the month of May? And we can see those areas are no longer in shadow. Everything is in full sun. This can help in a search because there's areas that obviously if they're in shadow, it's going to be harder to find something. Okay. Landing zone slopes. This is a layer that Rick Najarian created. And what this says is, I want to find an area that is not covered with vegetation and that I believe the slope he's got it set is less than 4 degrees. So flat land, not covered with vegetation, these areas would make good landing zones. So specifically, this is useful in mountainous areas where both flat land and not tree covered can become pretty critical. We have a whole section here on the weather forecasts. The temperature, what's the temperature going to be? So it's saying our 24-hour low in this area is going to be around 30 to 35 degrees. I can pick and say, well, what's going to be my high temperature in this area? And it's going to come back and it's going to say, yeah, the high is going to be somewhere between around 55 degrees. Again, this is useful if we find out that the forecast of our search area in the middle of summer is going to be 95 to up to 115 plus. We have to make plans for better hydration and giving our people time off. Precipitation. This is any precipitation in this area, and obviously there's nothing, this is real time, so there is nothing scheduled in this area for right now. Within the next 2 days, let's see if there's anything scheduled. This says it looks like we're going to have about 1 inch of rain over the next 2 days. Wind speeds. Now, because this has to go out to the Weather Bureau, get the information, format it. It takes it a little while, as you saw, to get the information back. And sometimes the forecasts are in a much larger area than just a specific. So this is saying, okay, in general, we're going to get around 10 miles per hour wind speeds in our area. Between 10, that's the lighter green, and The areas that are not shaded won't get that much. So in some of the hills, you're going to get a slightly higher wind speed. And let's see, over 24 hours, do we expect any change in the wind? Again, it takes a while for it to go out and get the information and bring it back and then create the colors. Looks like that's still right around it, around 10 miles per hour is what we expect on our wind speeds. The wind plot. Let's look. Okay, this is going to take a second. And I'm going to zoom out again for this. Oh, here we see it. Here's the direction of the winds. You can see the winds are going to be coming from the southwest going towards the northeast. Okay, that's these little lines of indicating the wind direction, with the fat end being the direction it's going. And we can see, because they're green, they're going to still be around 10 miles an hour. Now we have the National Weather Service forecast. This shows us everything we could want to see. We can see the 24-hour low temperature, which is what we have right now, that says in our area it's going to be around 39 degrees tonight. We can look at precipitation. We can look at the wind speeds and the gusts of the different possibilities, precipitation and the winds. So that's the weather information that we can use. This one here that says SAR Topo Maps is not really useful for us. This takes every map that we have in the system and plots every item that we have on every map. So every track that we've ever done, every assignment we've ever created, every marker we've ever put, it will plot them again on this map. And it really doesn't give us any use. Real-time data, okay? This is equipment up in the Sierra that's reporting the snow levels. So for those that are in MRG and doing snow rescue, you can use this to see that, hey, as of the last reporting, which is at least daily, here's the amount of snow that's up in the mountains at specific reporting sites. Water gauges tells us what's being released from the various dams, how high are the various rivers. And then weather stations. Again, this just shows the location of the weather stations. We could see that information in an area has somebody reporting. It's not just an estimate, but not really a lot of value for us right now. This is the area of overlays.